Alright guys, for today's video, I have something completely different. I think I say that a lot, but this one really is different. What we're doing today is we're going to be doing a book review. The book that we're going to be reviewing is right here. This is called I Am Pitts, The Memoirs of an American Patriot by Dexter Pitts. Dexter can be seen in this picture right here. That's Dexter Pitts. Who is Dexter Pitts? Well, according to his book, he's an American patriot. Dexter is a good man. I'm a huge fan of Dexter. I've actually become friends with him over the last probably 6 to 9 months. I think we've become pretty close friends. I like him a lot. I went down to Kentucky back in October, and he was actually nice enough to give me a copy of his book. Not only did he give me a copy of his book, but he autographed his book for me and wrote a nice little message. Unfortunately, when I was taking a trip down to Louisville, he was also taking a trip up to Ohio the same weekend for a romantic getaway with his wife. So we weren't able to connect. He did ask what hotel I was going to be staying at, which was the Brown Hotel in historic Louisville. And that's where I always stay when I go down to Louisville on my annual bourbon excursion with my wife in October. But he was kind enough to drop off a book and autograph it and write a little message for me. So I greatly appreciate that. It was a very kind gesture of Dexter. And at the time, we hadn't really even spoken that much. I think he'd seen some of my YouTube videos and stuff. So he had an idea of who I was, but I didn't expect that when I went down to my hotel. But regardless of the fact, he gave me a book and he wrote the book. So I had a responsibility as a friend to read his book. I recently read the book and I wanted to talk to you guys about it now and encourage you to read it for yourself. You get to know Dexter very well and his life experience and what has kind of molded him into the person that he is today. I would say that Dexter and I actually grew up fairly similarly, which is pretty interesting given the fact that he's black from the South and I'm white from the North. But I think that poor white people in the North were treated very similar to the way black people were treated in the South. And we had some very interesting experiences growing up, particularly when it came to issues like bullying and stuff. I grew up in a small town with a large segment of relatively wealthy people. And I was not one of the wealthy people. I was one of the poor kids. And I was terrorized and tormented a great deal as a child. And I had to learn how to look past that and change who I was in order to grow up into a functioning adult. Dexter went through some similar stuff to that. We both went into the military right after high school, both deployed to Iraq or Iraq, depending on your vernacular. I was there almost exactly a year before he was. He rotated in a few months after I rotated out on my first deployment. I was very fortunate that I was not injured while I was in Iraq. Dexter was not quite so fortunate. This is a picture of the Humvee that he was in when he was injured in Iraq. I won't get into all the details because it's in his book, but he was hit. His vehicle was hit by an IED and he was very seriously wounded. And that obviously had a tremendous impact on his life. He then, when he got out of the military, after some time, became a police officer and was working in Louisville. And Louisville was one of the places that was kind of ground zero for a lot of the riots and everything that occurred in 2020, because not only were people rioting in the name of George Floyd out in Minneapolis, but they were also rioting in the name of Breonna Taylor, which that is something that happened in Louisville by a Louisville police department. And the interesting thing about the riots in Louisville was that with Breonna Taylor, the story that was out there was that she was lying in bed while she was shot by police who didn't knock and announce or anything like that. That all turned out not to be true. But here's a picture of Dexter himself wearing his riot gear, standing the front line. And in the book, it talks a lot about his experiences during the riots. I don't know. there's a lot of good information, a lot of good insight into the experience that some people have had in this country. And I think that he does a very good job of articulating that. With that in mind, I would like to read a little bit of the book for you. I'm not spoiling anything because this is in the first chapter of the book. But I want to talk about how I'm going to read part of the introduction when he talks about when he first kind of realized that he was going to step away from the mainstream narrative in the black community and the effect that it had on him. The moment I stepped out of line and expressed an individual thought based on my life's experience that did not align with the black agenda and the black community, my voice was instantly silenced. My black card was instantly canceled, and I was shouted down. You sellout, race traitor, Uncle Tom, coon, self-hating Negro. I was exiled from the black community because I did not co-sign and support all things black. I refused to buy into the black victim mentality and use the race card to advance my life. I had already traveled down that road in my past, and it did me no favors. Growing up dark-skinned, I always felt victimized, attacked, and judged because of how dark my skin is. It was never white people taunting and terrorizing me. The mistreatment and rebuke that seemed to constantly rain on me during my adolescent years was always at the hand of people who looked like me. I never saw myself as a victim of systemic racism and oppression from white people. There was no threat of evil, racist white men who were out to get me. In 2014, I grew weary and frustrated constantly trying to explain, defend, and argue my beliefs. It was a draining and daunting task. And to make matters worse, I felt alone as a black conservative. I was always constantly under attack and on the defensive. So instead of engaging in the never-ending debates, I felt compelled to write my memoirs and hope that people would come to understand me and why I feel the way I do, and view certain topics and respect me as my own man with my own opinion. With that in mind, I started writing. However, when I started writing, I wrote from a place of anger, frustration, rejection, and revenge. My words took aim at the black community and its shortcomings. I wanted the black community to accept responsibility for its ill treatment of me growing up and as a black police officer. I also took aim at the people in my life who caused me grief and pain. I wanted to shame them and hold them accountable for the things they did to me before the masses. While it felt great unleashing years of hurt and pain onto my keyboard, I started to realize that I was going about this the wrong way. I had grown and developed spiritually, mentally, and emotionally past the hurt, frustration, and anger that once controlled my life. I came to the realization that if I continued writing with malice in my heart, I would only end up hurting, shaming, and offending an entire community of people that were not solely responsible for my pain and suffering. I decided to change course and started writing from the heart with love, hoping to achieve understanding, healing, compassion, and forgiveness. While my main objective of sharing my life story was to help people understand who Dexter Pitts is, I also wanted those who choose to read this book to see that the black experience in America is not one size fits all. If you listen to the media and buy into everything you see on TV and social media, you will truly believe that America is a dangerous place for black people due to racist police and evil white men. You would believe that black people are being hunted down and killed for sport and bragging rights by evil white police officers. The truth is that there has never been a better time to be black in America. America was good to me and my family. And in return, I live according to JFK's famous saying, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." I'm very thankful that Dexter wrote this book. I'm very thankful that he gave me a copy of it so that I could read it for myself. After reading his book, I'm very proud to know Dexter. And it helps me kind of put into perspective the things that I'm dealing with in the world. And maybe I can try to be a little bit more like Dexter and his attitude towards everything that's happening today. I don't know. I highly encourage everybody to check out the book. Check out Dexter. He has a Facebook page called I Am Pitts. He has an Instagram, I Am Pitts, or Dexter Pitts. I can't remember. He also has the book, which I would encourage you to read, or you can now download on Audible, which he narrated himself. He also has a podcast that he does quasi-weekly called the I Am Pitts podcast. I would encourage everybody that follows me to follow him. I think if you like me, you're really going to like him. I think he's actually a better man than I am. Those are my thoughts for today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon.